Thank you very much for the invitation, and it is a pleasure to give a talk on something what actually looks like recent developments in language technologies, but don't expect some spectacular new findings. But rather, I would like to introduce sort of activity and I would say 2 years of effort to bring the language technologies out and to somehow show how they can be used by other research communities. And in this respect, I will immediately show you the overview of my talk. For those of you who are not completely familiar with language technologies, I will give a short introduction in a nutshell, and then I'll say something more about MetaNet and MetaShare in particular, and I will end up with some nice examples of language technologies that we use at XLike project. Sorry. Okay, so why language technologies? Well, the reasons are actually quite simple, because they are already here, all around us. We are soaked in language technologies, although we don't even know sometimes. Well, using spelling checker in any word processor is language technologies. And voice control in your smartphones is, of course, the same thing. Or search and translation with Google is the same thing. Or speech generation in computer games, maybe not your generation, well, but yes, maybe your generation as well. And computer-assisted language learning and OCR, correction part of OCR, or document classification, or if you want to talk to your Mercedes, of course, you will use language technologies, voice control it. And then you can even select whether you want a female or male voice to talk to. And of course, in the States, if you call any call centers, you will hardly find people from the other side of the telephone line. So it's usually some kind of dialogue system. Okay, and this is only the beginning, actually. And the reason for that is that language technologies could be considered today in IT as one of the basic technologies, like network or database or web technologies are considered already. And but it's of course more complex because of complexity of the natural language, not just at the level of words, but also phrases and sentences and clauses, and even more. You can have different varieties of language, so you can have a formal and informal language, you can have specialized languages, controlled languages, and so on. And then you can multiply all that with the number of languages in the world, which is roughly estimated between 6,000 and 7,000. Okay, not all of them have literacy, not all of them have a digital literacy, but still you have several hundred languages which tend to be digitally literate. At least you can look at the number of languages for which Wikipedias are being produced, and that's roughly an estimation what number of languages we are talking about. But of course, language technologies will help us to overcome the communication barriers, not just between humans and the knowledge, which is somewhere stored, but also humans and technology and machines, and of course humans and humans using different languages. And at the very same time, and I would say that means in the previous year or two, language technologies have reached some of the old goals, I would say. Well, machine translation is popping out. Different systems for machine translation has become extremely popular with introduction of statistical machine translation in the last 10 years, let's say. When I say they're like mushrooms all around, that means that you have commercial companies trying to live and earn money on machine translation, providing the machine translation output. And then, of course, you've seen IBM Watson winning the Jeopardy contest against two human champions. So this is one of the old dreams coming true, not just to beat the world championship, human world championship in chess, which happened, what, 15 years ago, something like that. But there you have it, a completely different area of knowledge and expertise. And then, of course, you have iPhones with a Siri assistant, which is still in infancy, but already very useful for the people who want to communicate with their smartphones in this way. And but the demand for language technologies is growing really fast, and there are several factors that influence this demand. And one of the factors is, of course, EU. Well, you are involved in EU almost 10 years. We will be, well, when I say be, I mean Croatia will be involved in EU in several months, and then we'll see how we'll survive altogether that thing. Okay, but European Union has the legal obligations based on the egalitarian inclusive approach to all languages, and that's one of the demands for language technologies. And of course, EU markets are multilingual. Our export markets are multilingual. And European institutions also are asking for language technologies. And when I talk about multilingual technologies here, that means first thing what will come to your mind is, of course, machine translation, but that's not all. It's also cross-lingual querying, querying through databases, knowledge extraction from different types of texts, and so on and so on. But having in mind the complexity of language and applications that is needed to process the language, unfortunately, we may still say that research in this area is too scarce and underfunded. And we might say that language technology research community is suffering from lack of interoperability, standards, and some kind of coordination. And even more, we still need more language data. And when we say that there's not enough research in language technologies, we may say that it's only with English that situation is somehow acceptable. But for other languages, all other languages are badly covered. Even the big languages like German, I would say. And what is striking is the lack of some basic technologies for smaller languages, which is, you would say, politically incorrect way to call them. The politically correct way in Eurospeak would be under-resourced languages. But it's the fact that these are the languages with a smaller number of speakers. I mean, like Slovenian, Latvian, Lithuanian, or Estonian, or Croatian, or Finnish, or Danish, or something like that. Okay, so these are roughly several million speakers countries. And of course, you have a problem of market there. So the market is not big enough that companies will have enough interest to invest into research into language technologies in that language, like in Germany it would. But in Latvian, you would have to find a state, or at least linguistic community, that will have interest to invest into development of language technologies. And you might say that you actually need the same amount of person months to develop language technologies for German as for Latvian, because you can look what your neighbors are doing, you can spy on them, but then it's useless to use a German dictionary to build a Latvian parser or something like that. It simply doesn't work. Okay, you have to do it on your own. So this lack of coordination and interoperability and lack of basic resources for some languages led the LT community to the idea of building a common approach to try to concentrate and make a pan-European effort, and this one is called MetaNet. And that means that the idea was to build up an appropriate program, to ask for appropriate funding support, and to address appropriate actors in this community. That means research community as well as commercial possible or business-oriented applications. So that was the starting point of the whole meta vision, and MetaNet was then considered to be a network of excellence, which is trying to build the technological foundations for European multilingual society. And that means that not just with MetaNet, which is a network of excellence, which is a stable, easy instrument, but there's been also association, which is called Meta, actually in a strategic alliance that is trying to connect all possible stakeholders in that are dealing with language technologies. And in this respect, the AI community is one of these communities that might find interest in using language technologies. In fact, in one of the first definitions of AI, I mean, using a natural language is an integral part of it, isn't it? And so the idea is, of course, to approach to these open problems with in collaboration with other fields or communities. So these are so-called 3 layers. So we wanted to build a community, build a MetaShare, which is an open resource exchange platform, and later I will say something about it, and of course build bridges to the neighboring communities. So this is the web address where you can find something about network. At this moment, so officially the funding is completed, so officially the project ended in 31st of January this year. But the Network of Excellence at this moment is composed of 60 research centers from 34 countries. And actually it started as a FP7 project T4Me, where a Slovenian partner, this institute, was one of the funding partners. And then later it was in a coordinated way supported by 3 additional ICT PSP projects covering other languages. Okay, sorry. And in the very same time, during the building of this Network of Excellence, a Meta Alliance has grown up to more than 700 members from 60 countries, even overseas countries, of course. The idea was to have a vision process in a discussion in vision and a discussion within the vision groups. One of the outcomes is so-called a series of language white papers on individual European languages. So 31 volume has been published at Springer. The whole Network of Excellence ended up in something what is called strategic research agenda, that is addressing the situation about language technologies in Europe in 2020. So we have some kind of projection. And of course, inclusion of other language communities into language policy bodies and inclusion of professional associations. So the results roughly could be described in this way. One of the major results is this language white paper series, where using the same methodology, the research groups from each of these countries actually provided information about the status of language technology, of the development of the language technology for that language community. And this allowed, so this same methodology allowed us to make a comparison between the different language communities and language technologies. And of course this made us available to detect the gaps that exist in language technologies for a particular language. For instance, you have a very good speech processing in Hungarian, but it's not so good in Slovak. And that's of course a Slovenian volume about that has been published there. But the next, I would say, major achievement of the whole Network of Excellence is a strategic research agenda, which is a strategy that has been developed, and how to include the language technology in Horizon 2020 that is being produced at this moment, which is actually FP8. And of course you can freely download this strategic research agenda and any white paper on any language from the following addresses. So the idea was, of course, try to see how in this triangle of activities that either, if we are talking about socially aware interactive assistance or some kind of social intelligence or some kind of translation facilities like Translation Cloud, how these 3 points in a triangle could be connected and what kind of language technologies we need for that. And then we of course see that we need language resources for knowledge information technology. We need language resources specifically tailored for multimedia information technologies, and we need them for translation technologies. But in the middle you have basic resources for language technologies which are really basic. That means you need corpora, you need digital lexicons, and so on and so on. And not just that, they have to be more and more organized, not just a bunch of digital text put together. Okay, and this, of course, that idea, that very notion was then materialized in a form of meta-share, which actually has a rationale behind it in this, that could be put in this form. So in many other sciences, sharing data actually opened research and development in this area, and support innovative applications. What does it mean? That means that I would say the age of researchers that have collected the information, collected the data, and then store them on their hard disk or tapes or wherever, jealously keeping that from anyone else, actually is gone. It's passed by. So the whole idea, if you look at this, for instance, information, this one is striking. So the Human Genome Project made their results accessible, freely accessible. And this generated 3 billion euros of research and development investment. So this data set alone, okay? And then it generated €500 million in economic activity. So there is significant potential if you share the data, right? And you have quotes like this at this time. So how does this reflect to language and language technologies? One of the, of course, most complex cognitive faculties that we face. That means that you have questions and requests in different LT4A, like everyone is looking for English language X parallel corpus, because everyone needs that type of data, for instance. And they also would like to know whether this parallel corpora are aligned, so sentence for sentence, and whether, for instance, there are tools for language identification in Twitter streams, because analyzing Twitter streams today is extremely popular, or Facebook posts, or any other kind of social media. And then, of course, there's a huge request for basic text analysis tools like similarity measures and this type of tools that will give you from the top view whether two documents or two collections of documents look alike or similar, to what respect, to which extent, and so on, so on. Okay, so so the rationale behind the meta-share is that only a portion of language resources is known to, is announced, is shared, is traded. Okay, despite the very fact that collecting data, cleaning, annotation, and maintenance is extremely costly business. Has any one of you tried to build a large corpus? Probably yes or not. Some of you yes, I'm sure. And sometimes it takes a long time to build it, a long of human effort. Sometimes it's maybe automatically derived from web today, but then you need a human effort to make it useful. So you still need to invest a lot of human effort inside. And yet all that is kept aside, kept someone in obscurity of someone's hard disk, and then not being shared. Okay, so but the idea behind this meta-share was that if we want to really make a real progress in this field, is that we need to take care about all those aspects which are the scientific, technical, legal, organizational, that will enable us to recycle, to reuse, to repurpose the already existing data. Okay, so in this respect, meta-share has that's the core idea. So the meta-share could be defined, or is actually, a platform or that tries to match the language resource providers, so the ones who are producing language resources and tools, and the consumers. Okay, so we are like a dating agency, actually. We are trying to find the best match. Okay, so how can you do that? If you go to a dating agency, of course you will look at their database and see what they offer, and then you will probably try to match the person by your own preferences. Okay, you will not probably ask about his or hers. Okay. But for language data, what MetaShare is providing is not just providing the contact point, but also enables that your data will be visible. Forces you to document your data so that it's not just left somewhere undocumented. And forces you to have a unique ID. So in this community you will finally have a unique ID with which you can reference your data. And of course allow you to have it available and preserve it somewhere, because the whole system is running somewhere in data repositories, and if you're a data provider, you can simply provide your data to a repository. You don't care about it. You don't do the backup. You don't take it. You don't care about 24/7 uptime and so on and so on. So you simply leave that to the professionals, I would say. So what was the expectation? That the wide availability and openness and sharing of language resources and tools will contribute to boost research, technology, and innovation, of course. And this is the web address where you can see what is available. This is a rough architecture. So you see that you have different inventories, language repositories. They're all connected as a federation through the same metadata model. And then you have a MetaShare inventory, which is so-called managing nodes. And from the user side, which is from this side, then you have a registration and the similar protocols for users, and then users can search, browse, license, download, and so on and so on. And of course, external repositories can also access that. You can join MetaShare as either core user support providers or repository service providers or depositing only or associated or third party. So there are a number of layers at which you can join to MetaShare. Okay, so what is MetaShare today? So a network of 23 language repositories in 19 European and candidate countries. At this moment, it's more than 2,100 language resources and tools available through this network. And the very software that is running behind the MetaShare platform is also open source. So you can do with it whatever you want. You can download it, you can set up your own language resource repository, and you can link it to the whole MetaShare. And of course, sorry, there are also legal instruments. So that means the licensing mechanisms that allow you to use the data in a way that is appropriate to your needs. And of course, you have support like help desk and user forum and similar things. But MetaShare is also sharing the mapping services to big resource inventories, so research infrastructures like Clarin, ERIC, or OLAC, or similar things. And MetaShare has been launched in Berlin in 25th of January this year. You see here the responsible persons who were all trying to push the same button at once, which was a feat by its own. Okay. So about MetaShare, I will say only a few words now from the user side. I will not tell you anything about provider side, because you will. I assume that you will be mostly interested into it as users. So you can search through central inventory. You can browse using multiple facets of filters. And of course, you can access the resources, checking the licenses that are connected to these resources, and get support from help desks, and of course consult the knowledge base. So MetaShare looks like that when you open it. And then of course you can search for Slovenian, which is, I would say, quite appropriate, and then you will get 17 language resources. Most of them here, as you see, are multilingual. And then you can have either them downloaded, or you can have them used and then included in some other tools. And of course, but in MetaShare you can find some types of resources that are directly, I would say, of a direct interest to AI researchers, either for training or deriving any kind of statistics or pattern matching procedures. For instance, you have 58 word nets available there, so you have ontologically based resource. Or parsers, syntactic parsers, there are 42 different ones. Or ontology annotation and building tools like this one. Or you can find already made, downloadable and useful ontologies like GeoNet Portugal, for instance. You have the whole geospatial ontology of the state of the Portugal, where that means that you can go from the top level of a state, then you have it analyzed on different regions, I think the regions, and then you have towns, you have streets, you go up to the level of street number. So it's so you immediately know, if you pick up the name of a street, you immediately know to which town or region or part of Portugal belongs to. Okay, so you have such already pre-defined ontologies freely available, downloadable, like hotel ontology. So ontology about accommodation. So if you go to a hotel, what kind of concepts you have there? So the ones who are dealing with the scenes and the scenarios, I mean, these things could be extremely useful, I would say. And for instance, you have multilingual adaptation of existing ontologies like Polish lexicon for open psych. You didn't know that. Yes, for instance. Or you have, for instance, the whole Genia event corpus with medical events described and annotated in text, so that you can, for instance, see which are the lexical groundings for some events in the medical area. Okay, so these are roughly, this is roughly all what I wanted to show you about MetaNet and MetaShare. So I'm simply inviting you to go there and browse yourself and check out whether you can find something which is useful to you, either directly or derived in a certain way, out of this 2,000 and more, 2,000 plus language resources. And now I'd like to conclude my talk with some examples from language technology usage in XLike project. Just quickly about the XLike project, it's FP7, it belongs to this area. Total cost is that, duration is this one. It's a strap type project, coordinator is Marko Grobelnik from this institute, and the website, of course, you can consult is that one. The partners in the project are full partners listed here, and there are associated partners, of course, like IIT in Mumbai or New York Times, and there are more to come because it looks like the XLike project has attracted some attention by some news agencies, so they all want to pop in. That's very interesting and very promising, I would say. And the main goal could be formulated in this way, that XLike is trying to monitor and aggregate knowledge that is somehow spread through general or mainstream social media, and to enable publishers or information brokers, as they call them, to try to monitor this media and extract knowledge and events when they appear. And of course they can use it for business intelligence, for whatever means. I mean, what information brokers are doing, they're selling information. So the whole idea is to find the information in the most straightforward way. And of course the project is trying to combine the capabilities from several areas. There's a computational linguistics, machine learning, text mining, semantic technologies, and so on. And the idea is in order to enable this cross-lingual text understanding by machines. So I would say text understanding is a little bit far-fetched. I wouldn't call it that way. I would simply say, okay, some kind of knowledge extraction. I wouldn't say it, because understanding, we can now go into very deep philosophical debates about understanding. And I'm sure you went through that. I wouldn't like to repeat it, and I think that maybe it's not even time or place for you to start it again. No, these are the 6 XLike languages, and aside of these 6, there's been development for more languages, of course, to be included in this system, like Hindi, by associated partner, and even we in Zagreb are building the similar thing for Croatian. So as soon as the project ends, we'll probably have the whole set of tools also available for Croatian. So what I would like to show you today is actually what has been built in the first year of the project. So that means in the last year. So it's a multilingual pipeline. So there are 6 pipelines for 6 languages that are doing all the same type of processing. So you can simply input the text, the free text, and then the pipelines will do sentence splitting, tokenization, lemmatization, part-of-speech tagging, name entity recognition and classification, parsing, and semantic role detection. So if you look at the structure, it looks like that. So you have all the modules available for each language, so English, Spanish, German, Catalan, and so on. So you input the XML, you get the linguistic analysis that does all that, and you get an output XML which is enriched actually by information about lemmas, entities, syntactic triples, and predicate argument roles. So if you look at the syntactic triples, oh, it's too small. Okay, sorry about that. So if you look at the syntactic patterns matching mechanism, then you can see a subject that is doing something. So here are some actions. Actions are on the links, and then you have objects. So this subject is doing this to that. So Rajoy is adding a problem. What you would of course expect from a Spanish prime minister, that he is just adding the problems, not solving them. Okay, or you can have I can't really read that. Okay, so he can dismiss a count book. Okay, so he's dismissing a count book. Okay. So this is the analysis on the level of syntax. Okay, but the next step, of course, is semantic roles, and this is where network becomes much more complicated. So this is the result of, what was it? 100 documents. 100. It was 100 documents. So you get this type, and of course you have the same agent all the time here. So that's the prime minister, Spanish prime minister, doing all that. Okay. So there is a way how you can really map what a certain agent, what kind of actions he is doing to whom. Okay. All right. So so this type of analysis is now available. And later, after or during the questions or after the questions, I can try to demonstrate. I mean, this runs online, so we can demonstrate that if you want. So now I would like to conclude my talk with the following thing. So what actually I have presented is an exercise how research community that I would say is mature enough can boost its visibility and its impact by coordinated pan-European effort. So this is something what I would say practically any research community can do. And then we wanted to also involve all the relevant stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, it's not just researchers, it's also users, it's also commercial users, and it's also, I would say, policy makers. And this is where you want to, of course, get support. And you won't get it without the policymakers, okay? And then, of course, we managed to produce a common data sharing platform with more than 2,000 data units, whatever you want to call them. In our case, it's language resources and tools, which are at your disposal. And, of course, I demonstrated some of the language technology examples in a project that is still running. And that's about all I had to say. Thank you very much for your attention. And I'm open for questions, of course.
Thank you. MetaShare, you said that it's like providing a lot of software tools. How compatible are they between each other? Like if you take, for example, like English parser or and German parser, do they expect data input in the same format or completely different?
Well, that of course depends on the system, but each and every piece of software is documented. So you have clearly described the input format and output format. So there's no guarantee that English parser and German parser will work on the same format of data.
So there's no standards?
No, not in this respect. We were not aiming at making them all compatible in this respect, okay? But at least to achieve the same level of documentation was, I would say, challenge on its own. And I think we managed with that. Because you don't get only description, you also get references to the papers, to works. So you can even read about it in more into details, okay?
Maybe one short question. Can these tools be used only through the web interface or
No.
web service?
No. There are different. So they could be standalone tools. So you download them, you install them on your computer, and then you run them. Or they could be web services. That is precisely described in this. So, so if you want, I can show you them. Let me check. So if I go to one of the managing nodes, and I ask for Slovenian instead. Well, there's a funny thing. Well, sometimes you call your language Slovene, sometimes it's Slovenian, and I think in metadata it's always Slovenian. Although in the names you will find sometimes, for instance, like here. So you will find Croatian and Slovene, but here, see, this is directly taken from metadata, so it's Slovenian. Okay, so so you, for instance, this is a model which you can freely download and then include in Stanford name entity recognition system. Okay, and then you can read all what you need about it. Well, let me see why I can't. Yeah, because it's too small. Yeah. Okay. So these are all the information you can get, and on this side you have all the resource creators and so on, and so you have access to. So you even have a link to the tool that will use these models. Okay. So all the relevant information are provided for you to download it and use it as easy as possible. Or something else, we can look at the MetaShare description of, or you can filter by names of languages. Okay, so first we issued Slovenian, and then you have sub-filters. Okay, or you can filter by corpus type. So you can see here you have 9 corpora, 7 lexical conceptual resources, and 1 language description. Or media type, text, audio, and then availability. So some of them have unrestricted use, some are restricted use. Restricted use means that probably it's only for non-commercial purposes, for research purposes, and so on and so on. Okay, and you have different licensing mechanisms. So these are all facets. So if I say, okay, CC BY, that means I will narrow down my list to only 4 languages, 4 resources, so that these are Slovenian resources that are covered by this license. Okay, so each of these filters can be used freely as much as you want.
So how is with maintenance after the end of the project? Where is it running?
Well, at this moment, one of the managing nodes is ELRA, which is a European Language Resources Agency and distribution agency, ELDA. So they took over the MetaShare, part of MetaShare, at least one of the managing nodes. Most of the partners from this project, from a Network of Excellence, send a letter of memorandum of understanding or letter of intent that they will maintain the whole system running for at least 2 more years without asking for any additional funding. And this is roughly estimate that after 2 years some other source of funding will be found. Okay. In some cases, for instance, in case of Zagreb, we were very lucky because we opened a virtual server in our university computing center that is taking care about all the technical part, you know, backup and all the things. And this virtual server is up 24/7, and we can expand it as much as we want because we are part of university, and this center is being financed directly by them. We have only resources for creation, but then the metadata propagated up to the managing nodes, and the 7 managing nodes have the copy of everything. Okay. That's the federation approach.
Maybe that's more a question for Dunia actually, but do we have a virtual server or whatever, MetaShare for Slovenian as well, for Slovenia?
As far as I know, no, because all the Slovenian resources are stored on some other repository. So it really doesn't matter where it is, actually. We were simply we put up our virtual server practically in the last 2 weeks of a project, because our coordinator of CESAR project asked us to do that. We could easily live without it, so we could easily say, okay, our resources are in Warsaw server.
Because I thought the managing nodes only have metadata, so that's not true. They also have the actual resources.
No, managing nodes are managing metadata, that's true. But then some of them also function as repositories. Okay? For instance, Warsaw node is both, which was the main and the only node for CESAR up to the end of the project. And then at the end of the project, we were asked to spread this information to lower nodes, so just storing as a repository.
But I see that a bit problematic now, because if the project ends, right, then what's the interest of Warsaw of accepting, say, new language resources? They get no money for it?
Yeah, that's true.
But it costs them something to upload, to maintain, and so on.
Yeah, that's true. It would be more appropriate or naturally expected to keep your own node, national node, and to fill it up with your own resources. Yeah, but then the problem is, what about the international resources? When you have, like 7 languages, a resource that covers 7 languages, who is taking care about that? All 7, or just one of them, or 2? Which combination? So that's not, probably the resource creator is doing that. Okay, that's what you would do. Yes.
How would you judge the completeness of this MetaShare repository, in the sense that there are many language resources out there? So if I'm looking for something and find it on MetaShare, then all is well. But if I don't find it, how good is the chance that it's out there but simply not on MetaShare?
Well, there is a chance always. It would be foolish to say that there's no chance to do that. But I would say that language technology community made every effort possible to include as much as resources as possible into MetaShare. I mean, there's no guarantee that there isn't a resource outside of it, absolutely. But I would say it's the first place where you would go. And then if it's not there, then you might expect some more effort. You would need to dig it out, if possible at all.
Are those resources ranked in some kind of way, or they just provided?
Are they, sorry?
Ranked, let's say, by popularity or by...
I think there has been some ranking mechanism about really what exactly popularity, but I've never tried to check that out, because I'm simply not running this type of ranking usually. I think there has been. Look, you have something like that. So if I, for instance, select this resource, then you get, I think, at the end or somewhere. I've seen it somewhere. Just a second. I'm not sure. I've seen it somewhere on the bottom, that people interested in this resource were also interested in some other resource, and then you get a list of resources that someone else was also interested in. So there is this type of ranking, some kind of recommendation, okay, but not in this one. I don't know why not in this one. Maybe. So number of views, number of downloads, okay, language name. So you have this type of ranking, okay. And these are number of views, of course. See, this is a number of downloads. At this moment, well, this is expected since the whole thing was launched in January, and these are quite specific, I would say, type of resources. So I will stick only to language technology prototypes. So you have, of course, we have example sentences which you don't have to type in, but you would type in a sentence here. So if I say, so we have a language identification here. You can either say in advance which language it is, or you leave it to the system to recognize. And then you get the analysis. So the sentence is being syntactically analyzed. And then you have annotations. That means you link the name entity to ontological space. Okay, so you have links of name Bruce Springsteen to Wikipedia unique identifiers in English, German, Spanish, Chinese, and Catalan Wikipedias. You see, so this works for these 5 languages. For some strange reason, Slovenian was working earlier, but I think it's at this moment it might be down. So it should be Slovenian here as well. Okay. And then you have another. You have oh, you see a Slovene here.
We don't have Bruce.
Oh, you don't have Bruce. Yeah, you don't have. How come you don't have Bruce Springsteen in Slovenian Wikipedia? He's not popular in Slovenia. Come on. Okay, but United States, of course, you have. Okay, fine. So you have it this 6. Okay, and as a notion of multi-instrumentalist, only in English, German, and Spanish, and singer-songwriter only in this. In all 6 of them. Okay, so this is, as you see, not just syntactic analysis. It's also analysis of name entities, and then linking these name entities to an ontological space. And this is how much we needed for that. Okay, 62 milliseconds. So good.
Is this linking always done to Wikipedia or also some other resources?
This prototype is working with Wikipedia, but we are also now experimenting with DBpedia and some other ontological, practically all the linked open data. So we'll check which one of these will be the most appropriate. Yeah, this one is working now. And you see the types here, of course, you see. The American is type other, Bruce Springsteen is type person. This is, let me check what kind of information we have here. So this is type from annotations. So these are other type of annotation, not the name entities, okay? Because we are now tracking the concepts, see? So singer-songwriter was tracked as a concept. Not literally, but tracked as a concept.
Anything else? No? Then we thank the speaker again.
Thank you very much.